Hello and welcome to the Age of Geek podcast. I'm Robert,
Hello, I'm Marlee.
and we have tonight with us our special guest somewhere down there because it's
I,
all
I'm, I,
messed up. It's
yeah.
it's our friend James Estrada.
Hello. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. How are you tonight?
Great. Fantastic. Excited to
Now
Excellent.
that
talk
you're
turtles.
here, yeah, now that you're here with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
was
I
with
just
my
got so
kid
much
all day. That was awful. Like, this is way better than being with my kid.
Oh, I've met your kid. I find that hard to believe.
Oh, he is almost a teenager. So,
Oh my
How
god.
old is he now?
12.
When does he turn 13?
March. Next March.
I
He just turned 12.
gotcha. My two turn
He,
12 next month in a month.
yeah, he came up to me this afternoon after we went and saw the movie. And he does this thing where he like sits down, he tries to have a serious conversation. He goes, and this is how he starts. He says, "Father, I'm going to be in seventh grade soon," and I'm just like, "I'm so old."
You see, at that point you just go, it is time to complete your training.
Well,
And
I told him to go to his room. Like that's usually what I do. I'm just like, go do preteen stuff.
Oh
yeah, we're dealing with that.
goodness.
Seventh grade for the girls starts Wednesday. Wow. So yeah,
Next
that's
week?
this week.
Wow. My
Yes.
kid, he starts school so late. He doesn't start until next Tuesday.
Oh
Interesting. What
wow.
what district?
Salt Lake.
Hmm. Yeah, the girls are Wednesday, and tomorrow's the beginning of prep for getting everything in order for that. So it'll be fun.
Mm.
Yeah, all the schools up by me are their first day is on Thursday, which is just such a weird day to start school. And they're doing like early out too. So it's like, why?
Just
Okay,
just
this
kidding.
Like push it to Monday.
yeah. I don't know. One of the
Just
moms
Uh,
tried to explain to me, she's like, well, no, it's actually easier for them to just like get that first day of school, like stuff out of the way instead of having it be a Monday and have all week. And I'm just like, okay, I understand that I don't have kids and I don't totally understand what you're talking about, but you don't need to like talk to me like that. I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, chill.
I don't know if you feel this way, Robert, but having kids, having a child who's going into seventh grade, I don't understand it. Like going to school as a kid, like I was like, I'd rather start on a Monday and
mm,
deal with the pain
of
of
Monday.
yeah, instead of being like, I don't start till Thursday and then I get a weekend.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
then
shouldn't get the no bad news Thursday rule. That should be something that you don't get into like college or maybe high
Yeah.
yeah,
school.
And like, don't you want the whole week? Like, I would want the whole week to be like my last week of summer kind of thing. Like, I don't want to start school in the middle of a week. Like,
yeah.
that's not cool. It's like, no, let me end the week, end summer, and enjoy a weekend and then just jump into it. Here's
Well, and
Monday.
I feel like a lot of schools have kids who aren't even there those first 2 days if it's midweek because they're still on vacation.
That too.
So it's
That
like
too.
do it on a Monday when everybody has to go back to work and the parents are excited to get rid of their kids.
Mhm.
So here's a question really quick for the both of you. When you were in grade school, when did school start for you? August or September?
August.
It was always August. But it
Wow.
was always like this either the last Monday or like the second to last Monday, just depending on like where it fell in the month.
See,
Interesting.
we were always the like second week of August. We were back in school.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
after
Yeah.
Labor Day. We started
Really?
after Labor Day. So it was like, okay. I mean, we went until like the second week of June, but yeah, it was typically
Yeah.
whatever, like a day or two after Labor Day, and then we
Mhm.
dive right in.
See, and I think
Yeah.
in Colorado they did it because we had snow days all the time in the winter. So I
What's
think,
that?
yeah,
Growing
yeah.
up in Utah, we don't know what that is.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I told my kid one day, I was like, "You'll never remember what a snow day is like." 'Cause the last time he had a snow day here, he was in kindergarten, and
Oh,
then, uh, but he was only in half day kindergarten, so it's like it didn't even matter. Like, it was like, "Cool, we both get to sleep in and have cocoa later. Awesome."
that's cute.
But but I told him I was like, because of COVID, now nobody's gonna ever know what a snow day is because they'll
This is
just do
true.
distant learning. But yeah, no, we had so many snow days that I think they preemptively started us early so we could still end at the end of May without having to extend our school year if we had to miss. Because there were days where we would miss. There was time where we missed like weeks of school because of how bad the snow was. Wow.
That never like growing up in Utah, we never had snow days. It was just like sometimes they had like delayed starts, but for
Yeah.
the most part, they're like, nope, just drive safe. We'll see you soon.
Now, East Coast, like we're thinking about it snowing now. Close everything. It was great. It's like two
Well,
inches of snow. Get all the milk and bread out of the stores, and we're shutting down for a week.
Yeah,
Have
it's
at
like,
it.
no, get in your SUV and hightail it to school because you don't want to be
yeah.
late.
Well, and like I think the funny thing though, like, was when I tell like friends from Utah like that we had snow days and stuff, like, oh well, it probably wasn't even snowing that bad. I was like, okay, for them to call snow day, like the snow would be up to my waist, and I would like still we would still be going to school in that. So for them to
Okay,
call a snow day, it had to be like really bad.
so I visited Denver for the first time like a few years ago,
Uh
and it was snowing because it was like end of February, and there was snow, and like we were just driving careful, and we got to our Airbnb that we were staying at, and the next morning we're like, oh, we'll be fine. It'll all be plowed by the morning. No, they don't plow.
no.
What is with that? You're in Colorado. It does snow there. It is the mountains. I just
Well,
like we were like, what in the world is happening? Like, if this were Utah, the roads would be clear by now.
there's this thing in Colorado where like they uh they call it their wake and bake sessions, so they don't get out to plow the snow because they're uh, high on life, if you will.
Ah.
So that's been going on for generations before it was legal.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. All right. Well, we should probably start jumping into this really quick, and since
Yeah.
we're
Do
our
we
second week of the new format, do a couple of things
Yeah.
from geek news from the past week or so,
Do you
and
have
then
some
jump
stuff?
in.
Because I
I do.
I
Do
am
you?
ill prepared.
No, no, no. I am ready for this one.
Okay.
Um, we'll start off with a TV item, Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, introduced yet another classic Star Trek character in their season finale this week. They introduced Mr. Scott, Montgomery Scott, formerly played by James Doohan and Simon Pegg. Um, and this version of Mr. Scott is played by a 29-year-old Scottish actor named Martin Quinn, who who much like Carrie Elway's playing Robin Hood, actually has a Scottish accent, so he actually sounds like a traditional Scotsman. But I didn't realize one of the things I didn't realize until I think Thursday or no Friday when I read something was that James Doohan, who had played Scotty for all those years, wasn't Scottish at all, and that a lot of people hated his accent because he just butchered a Scottish accent in much the same way that Dick Van Dyke's butchered a British accent in Mary Poppins. So there you have it. Um, Second, jumping star franchises, Disney is closing their Galactic Star Cruiser experience, and they're going to take a $250 million loss on it as a accelerated depreciation. And it just opened in March of 2022, and they're like, I think that our earnings are going to just be like, yeah, we're going to cancel this. So for those of you who were able to embark on the cruise, I know that one of our colleagues, Colin, and his family went on it earlier this year or sometime last year and loved it, and had hoped to get on it again. But I think that they are already booked through the end of their cycle and bidding this Star Cruiser a bon voyage.
Sad.
Yeah. And then jumping over from Star Wars to another Disney related or Disney franchise slash Sony franchise, uh, Beyond the Spider or Across the Spider Verse. If you went and saw this in the theater, if you saw it in one theater, if you saw it once in the same theater or more than one time in the same theater, you may have seen the same reel and the same cut of the movie. But there were different versions that played in different theaters, and they changed parts of dialogue here and there, or just reactions here and there. But when it came to digital this week, people noticed a few more changes,
Mm-hmm.
um, including scenes where dialogue has just been scrubbed from this take, or just
Or completely changed.
completely changed. One of the things that I saw that was one of the bigger ones was when Miles and Gwen hop into the Moonbatten uh, universe with Paviter Parkour, and Miles gets trapped under the rubble, and Gwen goes to go and save him. In the theatrical, she's like, "No, no, 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 no," and is very frantically looking for him. Very quiet now as she searches for him, and is just kind of like, there's the same kind of relief when she finds him, but the whole frantic search, you don't hear that anymore when she's doing that. And they've also taken out the at the end where Miles is like, "Yeah, they're trying to tell me how to do my story, but I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going home." That has also been removed. So it kind of changes the tone in a couple of key scenes of this movie for a couple of the key characters. Have either of you watched the new version or the digital home version yet?
Yes,
No, I
like
haven't.
3 times.
Okay.
Listen, when I have a problem, guys.
But you
When
enjoy media? That's not a problem.
well, so my family, we share a Voodoo account, and so my youngest brother, it's on his credit card, and we're always Venmoing him like, hey, buy this movie and we'll Venmo you. And my
Hmm.
oldest brother got him to buy Across the Spider Verse, and I was like, all right, sorry guys, you guys aren't watching because you could only watch it one at a time, like. And I was like, you guys aren't watching this for like 3 days because it's gonna be on repeat at my house for three
Oh my
days.
gosh.
And like my kid would wake up and come out to the living room and I'm sitting in the same spot watching the movie over again. He's like, how many times is this? You need to talk to somebody. But yeah, no, I've seen it and I noticed that. And it's one of those things that it's like uh I get like why people would be frustrated with it. I'm assuming that when it comes out on Blu-ray that you're gonna get a a bunch of different options on how you can watch it. Um, but it's always like when they initially release it on digital, they're essentially just pushing out the fastest thing they can so people will buy it right away.
Sure.
And then usually what you see, I don't know if you guys have noticed this if you bought things digitally, but once it releases on Blu-ray, usually more uh, content comes out on the digital platform that you bought it on. So if you do Voodoo, for example, like your special features portion grows dramatically when it's released on Blu-ray. So I'm assuming it's going to be the same thing with this, where you're going to get more versions of it, or at least more audio tracks from it, so
Oh,
you can
interesting.
see. So you could see like what was it like 30 something different
Versions of
versions of it.
scenes. Yeah.
So I'm assuming they'll do something where you can see all of them at home. But it wasn't a big deal to me because like the movie wasn't just built on those two scenes for me. Um, but I get why people were frustrated with it because it's not what they saw.
Exactly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how audiences, as more people see it, how it plays out for them. And I guess lastly, I think that I've mentioned before on various podcasts, the webtoon DC series from, let's see, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Batman Wayne Family Adventures, Zatanna and the Ripper, and Vixen NYC, which are some of the most fun versions of any of these characters that I've ever seen. And it is the Batman Wayne Family Adventures one is one of the most well written, well encapsulated versions of the extended Bat family that I have ever seen. And it's also Bruce is a reasonably well adjusted person despite his trauma in every other medium. He still has some of that trauma lingering, but he actually smiles, which is a little scary to see when you first see it. But this week, DC and Webtoon released actually print versions of Batman, of Vixen, and of the Wayne Family Adventures, and it is probably the first half of each of the two stories in trade paperback form. And I cannot recommend them enough. And they are also very much family friendly. So if you have younger readers, you can have them read these and not worry about excessive violent content or language or or mature content. This is written for pretty much all ages. Every once in a while, you may get an expletive thrown in there, but it's not like you're reading a Vertigo or a DC Black Label comic. So those are my recommendations for comics for this week.
Nice.
Check them out at your local comic shop.
Yeah.
You can also look online on Webtoon for, as I mentioned, Batman, Wayne Family Adventures, or Vixen NYC, Zatanna in the Ripper, which also features a slightly dialed back John Constantine, and Red Hood and the Outlaws.
Nice. Before we move on, I actually do have a bit of gaming news that I could share if you're done.
Of course. Yes,
Cool.
please.
With that. So I thought this was really interesting. At first I was really excited to hear because for a while now, rumors of a Red Dead Redemption remake or remaster has been it's been like circulating for quite some time. Because we got Red Dead Redemption 2 for the PS4. Red Dead Redemption was on the PS3, and so a lot of people were like, "Oh, a remaster of the first one would be amazing." But then this week we actually got some news that something new is coming, but it's not what anyone expected, and that is where the letdown is because they're not doing a remake or a remaster. Instead, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna bring Red Dead Redemption to the Switch, as well as make like a port for the PS4, PlayStation 4. And so it's like, it's the same 13-year-old game, and there's like no improvements in the graphics and like performance and like no multiplayer, and they're still gonna charge like $50 for it. And but you do get the Undead Nightmare DLC for free, but it's like, this is not what anybody wanted. Like, and even like the PC gamers are all like, well, what about us? Like we want a remaster or a version that we can play on PC.
Well, maybe a secret level will be where you can play as the horse.
Oh my gosh. But I wish it was actually a remaster, especially for PS5. Like, can you imagine? That would be amazing.
No, actually,
and even Red Dead Redemption 2, like to have that one be remastered for the PS5. It was so close. We were so close.
Maybe someday they will acquiesce and be like, okay, there's all these systems we actually can improve upon things on.
But 13 years from now, you'll get the remaster.
By then, I hope they have even better system than the PS5, though. Like, I hope we don't, they got to just keep, moving up. But...
So what they'll do is 13 years from now, you'll get the remaster, but the graphics will be the original.
Oh, God.
So it'll play on, like, the PS16 or whatever's out by then. But... it'll look like,
So it's going to be kind of like the Master Chief Collection for the Xbox. So you get the same graphics. Although there is a toggle that you can do that does upgrade the graphics a little bit on that one.
Yeah.
Well, here's hoping that they do finally come around and realize we can update this and bring it to more players on more platforms, and make it just a better all-around experience for everybody.
Yeah, well, I don't have too much faith in Rockstar doing anything for Red Dead because they're all about GTA.
Yeah.
So even to get anything like this, like having Red Dead Redemption for the Switch is already a big enough deal that they're even doing anything for them. That's not GTA, but that's a topic for another time. Ripping into Rockstar and
all right.
Maybe we'll talk more about it on Cutscenes and Cupcakes, which we have. We've definitely gotten into it.
Well, then we will use this to segue into the reason we were here tonight, which is to talk Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles released a new theatrical movie, animated, this past week, and well, it's a movie and it's fun, and we're going to now talk about it. Warning: there will be spoilers. So
for sure.
Be warned. If you've not seen the movie yet, you don't want to have anything ruined for you. Please, pause here, come back to visit us later. But otherwise, we're just going to jump right into the movie. And I will say, when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came onto the comic scene, it wasn't really one that I followed. And when the cartoon came out for the Saturday morning cartoons, it was kind of tail end of my Saturday morning cartoon watching. So it was like more something to have on in the background than something I was like glued to the set watching. But I know that there are many out there who are loyal legions of turtle fans and have been with them, from day one, and have loved them in their various incarnations. And turns out that James is one of these people.
I am. Oh man. Uh, it's actually so. I don't know if either of you watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah.
But you know how obsessed Jake Peralta is with the turtles? That's me. I walk past a sewer and I just we were walking, my kid and I were walking back from the theater to our apartment this afternoon, and he was saying something and I just zoned out on a manhole cover, and he was like, "Are you thinking about the turtles?" I was like, "It's a sewer. I'm guns to thinks about the turtles." So, yeah, it's a
What
problem.
if?
What if there are
Maybe.
Ninja Turtles under Salt Lake City? Like,
We don't know. We haven't seen them.
Which would
yeah.
be stranger, Ninja Turtles in Salt Lake or zombies in Salt Lake?
Mm. What about zombie Ninja Turtles in Salt Lake?
Even more strange.
Hmm.
Even more strange.
I
Hmm.
think I would be more stranged out. Like, I think I'd be more weirded out by zombies than Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
Like
That
same.
fair enough.
And I
And
feel
you
because
like
were
we
I,
would know if there were zombies because they would
yeah,
they'd be roaming around trying to eat people, whereas Ninja Turtles are ninjas.
they're
They're
trying
oh
not to
they're
be
sneaky.
seen.
They're sneaky.
Yeah. And like me, I would be like, hey, do they eat pizza? Like, is that a real thing? Should I go buy pizza for these Ninja Turtles? But yeah, no, I've followed all the cartoons growing up. I read a lot of the comics growing up. I even was all in for the Power Rangers Ninja Turtles crossover that they did. Was like 2000. Oh, I was an adult when that came out.
no shame in that. Love your
But yeah,
fandom.
I I remember like telling my ex-wife one day because she was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Don't worry about it." She's like, "Are those like really bad versions of like the live action Ninja Turtle costumes?" Like, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's okay.
Oh.
But no, like it's always been fun for me. Like, I grew up with two brothers and a cousin, and we would always play Ninja Turtles growing up. And even though I wanted to be Michaelangelo because he's a party dude, I was always Raphael. So, but yeah,
Cool.
loved it.
Now,
My
how about you,
goodness.
Marley? Were you ever a turtle fan, big turtle fan, or nominal turtle fan, or
So no.
okay?
Surprisingly, yeah. Well, not surprisingly, because I mean, when I was a kid, like I knew about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like it was around. It was definitely part of my, the pop culture around me.
Hmm.
And I had cousins who are boys who liked it. And I was more like into Barbies and stuffed animals and that kind of thing. And so I wasn't really into, well, I mean, that's not totally fair because I mean, I remember like my sister and our two cousins, we would always play Power Rangers. And she'd always get to be the pink one and I always had to be the yellow one and I was upset because pink is my favorite color. But so we would definitely like very close, it was very like adjacent. And even just growing up, like I know a lot about the Ninja Turtles and I could tell you all four names of them and I know they like pizza, like so there it was just very much a part of the culture.
Sure.
And it was very hard to not know about Ninja Turtles. Um Honestly, I went to go see this movie, Mutant Mayhem, um with my husband because he wanted to go see it. I mean, to be fair, I did drag him to Barbie, which he loved, and
Excellent.
I
As
It's
mean,
a
a
big
great
globe,
I
it's
mean,
a
movie.
good
he
movie.
liked it.
Fantastic
He
movie.
definitely he liked it, But
He cried during it. You just didn't see it.
but and so I was like, yeah, no, of course, like I'll go see the Ninja Turtle movie. I mean, why not? And like I ended up loving it. Like I thought it was such a fun movie
Mhm.
for fans and adjacent fans and non-fans alike. Like I felt like it was just a very delightful movie. Yeah, like I'd say it's definitely the audience is more for kids or big kids like us. But like I feel like especially big nerdy kids, but at the same time, like it was just a fun movie, and you didn't really need to know that much about the Ninja Turtles um, to to get into this movie. Like you didn't need any pre knowledge of this, because they
Right.
they did a good job of, kind of making like they touched on the origin.
Mhm.
I mean, yes, they went through it pretty quickly, but like it's all very basic concepts. And there was some someone made some ooze, and the ooze got in the sewer. The baby turtles got in the ooze. Like it was very just like not complicated. Like how some superhero stuff is a little like technical and there's a lot of big names for things, but
Mhm.
like with Ninja Turtles, it just doesn't need to be that way.
Right.
And it's still really enjoyable. It's easy to latch onto and just enjoy it for what it is, because they don't take themselves seriously, so you can't really take it too seriously, right?
Right.
True.
Well, and I think the interesting thing though too, talking about like the origin of it, um, with this movie, they actually like a lot of it was similar to the comic books, the cartoons and the older movies, but they did something completely different that they've never done in any Turtles medium. Like they've throughout their whole time, like in any iteration of the Turtles, they never really go out in public as
Yeah, that's what my
babies and
husband was
stuff.
saying too. Yeah.
So
He was
like the
saying that.
whole fact, like having Splinter take the kids up to the surface when they're little,
Go
like
to Times Square.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's never happened in any version of the Turtles. So it was nice, like being a fan and like knowing the older origins, seeing this new stuff come in, and it was interesting watching them build a world around that origin and not what I'm used to, especially like
Hmm.
going with my son who's 12, and I indoctrinated him into turtles at a
Mhm.
young age as well. But you know watching with me, whenever we watch movies like this, it's always fun to see his expressions during the movies. I have usually have to go see it multiple times because the first time he and I go see a movie together, I'm watching him more than I'm watching the movie, because I want to see his expressions and I want to see what. Uh, I mean, this goes even to Star Wars movies. When we watch Star Wars movies together, I'll watch him more than I'm watching the movie, because it's just as a parent, you never get to experience something for the first time again, but you
Yes.
kind of get to a second time with your kids.
Yes. I can
Um,
wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. Having gone with my wife and daughters to go see this, my wife was looking forward to it because she grew up with two brothers who were Turtles fans, and it was definitely part of her. Um, she was the older sister, but it's still part of her growing up. And the girls, my daughters, not really familiar with the Turtles. They knew that they had names based on artists, but beyond that, not a whole lot. So this was kind of like an introduction in detail for them. And as James was mentioning, it's fun to be able to see something for the first time again as a parent when you watch something with your kids. And not that I've indoctrinated my kids with certain comics or movies or things like that.
No, not at
No,
all.
no, not at all. But watching them discover things, they make connections on their own, and especially it was for me also interesting, as they did change the origin slightly here for this telling of the Turtles' tale, seeing them learn this version of the mythology or the mythos behind the turtles and just draw their own conclusions and just watching their faces as this is going on. And I envy you for only having to watch one kid because trying to watch two of them at the same time.
yeah,
Yeah, no. So I got I can see the close kid. The other one, yeah, she's over there. Okay, she's good. Okay, yeah,
So hearing you guys like describe this again, like because I don't have kids, but I did go see it with my husband. I feel like it was a very similar experience though, because
sure.
like
Yeah.
he is a huge Ninja Turtles fan. He grew up with it. He knows that he reads the comics, he knows the movies, the show, like he knows it, you know?
Hmm.
And so I was like, I mean, I was watching the movie definitely
Sure.
more than him, but like I was also very interested to like see how he was reacting to things. And like he was just like throughout the whole thing, like he just had like a big smile on his face. Like
Yeah.
he was loving it. Like, yeah, even though it's not like it's a little bit different iteration than the source material. Like he was just like, I wasn't really worried about the changes. Like I just enjoyed the movie. Like he said, and I feel like you know, probably not quite to the same level as him, but pretty close. He's like, this movie actually, to me was just as good as Across the Spider-Verse. Or I'm sorry, no, Across the Spider-Verse. Like he's like, because
Across.
that one
Yeah.
was like really high up there for him, and for me, I really loved that movie too. But he was like, yeah, this movie like is right up there for me with it.
I would say like honestly, like when it comes to movies that like Nickelodeon has put out, like animated movies, this is
Hmm.
definitely Nickelodeon's Spider Verse, Nickelodeon and Paramount Spider Verse.
Mm.
Um, like, and the funny thing is, I didn't realize that uh, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg were behind it.
Hmm.
Um, and if you ever watched like the show The Goldbergs on ABC, or at was is that what it was?
Hmm.
Because that's the guy who was who produced it and I think co-wrote it.
Yes.
Um, but like those two guys are like probably some of the biggest turtle fans, so you know they're gonna do justice to the movie when it
Hmm.
comes to producing this movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it was just so. And I think the funny thing though too that uh, with this movie is the references that they brought in, like the pop culture references, like the
Yes.
Hmm.
Adele concerts or watching Ferris Bueller and like all those small things. It kind of cements it into our reality for like some of the younger kids because they know those artists, they know those movies, they know all this stuff that's happening in our world. So it kind of brings a little bit of a sense of wonderment that they're not creating fake pop culture icons in this universe. It's like, yeah, these are turtles that live in what possibly could be our New York City, just an animated
Hmm.
version of our New York City.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it was ugh, so good.
Well,
Well,
and
not
I
only
really
those
liked
references.
the. Oh no, you go
Oh,
ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, and like the with back to like Seth Rogen being one of the writers too. Like, you could just like really see like his humor and just the other writer, Goldberg,
Evan Goldberg.
Evan Goldberg. Thank you. Like it just I feel like the humor was very solid throughout this whole film. It was
Yeah,
very like it wasn't like over the top, it wasn't cheesy, it wasn't like fake. It was just very like fun throughout the whole thing. And I
Yes.
feel like it wasn't overdone either.
And no, I actually glad that you went first there because you bring up a point that concerned me coming into this, knowing that Seth Rogen was attached to it and had so much to do with it. This is not the first comic property that or
mm.
superhero property that Seth Rogen's been involved with. If you go back a few years, he was involved with a movie called The Green Hornet, and
Oh, I didn't see that one.
that
Oh, I knew you were going there.
let me put it this way: I took that bullet for you.
Thank
Um,
you, Robert.
it was my pleasure.
Was it
Uh,
though?
it it was one of those you want it to be good because I mean they're doing a comedic take on a character that was a pretty serious character for in the '60s, especially for the TV show. And especially with I cannot remember who played the Green Hornet himself, but his sidekick was Bruce Lee. And you're just like, okay, how are they doing this? And it was a comedic take that I was not prepared for. For me, it was much like I am a huge Johnny Quest fan. The old '60s, very violent, not really pulling any punches cartoon. And then there's a bunch of people who are fans of the Venture Brothers, which is a direct spoof of this. And I watch the Venture Brothers and my teeth itch because it's like, but this isn't what I wanted out of this. So that's what I got from the Green Hornet. It was just kind of like, but no. So when I heard that Seth Rogen was attached, I was cautiously optimistic and hopeful that it would be a fun and good movie and something that everybody could enjoy. And I was delighted to go in and find out it totally was, and not just with like the pop culture references that James mentioned before, but even an amazing soundtrack. Like
Oh
I'm
Yes.
sitting here
yeah,
listening to the soundtrack, and I'm looking
I
Yeah.
over at my
loved
wife, and
it.
she's looking at me. And we're just like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I loved the soundtrack. Like it makes me want to like go find it on Spotify and just like listen to it at my leisure.
Yeah, but I mean, they had so many fun, upbeat songs that fit the mood perfectly, and
Mhm.
so many callbacks to the '80s and '90s and early 2000s in R&B and rap. And I'm just like,
Yeah, and they like made like
wow,
remixes and stuff of like popular songs.
yeah. And the remix of "What's Up," I was just like, uh, did I just hear? Really? Yes, yes. This is for non-blondes. Wow,
Yeah.
but it also worked.
Yeah.
Which was the thing. And they put they put together a movie that worked on so many levels, with the nostalgia, with being able to bring in new audiences, and you know let's even talk about the animation style, because looking at the commercials, you don't get the entire sense of what the animation style is like for this movie out of the clips that are shown. But the fact that they used a what looked to be a hand drawn, and to make everything look hand drawn as they're animating it, style was refreshing. It didn't just look
Yeah.
like a cookie cutter Disney movie or a cookie cutter Pixar movie. It was definitely its own thing. And I think for me, the animation style stood out enough to make their sewers, their New York, everything that they did stand out that much more.
Right.
Oh yeah,
Well,
for sure.
and I think one of the interesting things, like, because you talk about like what you saw in commercials, because I was reading something today that it dropped like 43% in ticket sales in the second week. And I'm like, it's sad that it's happening with this movie because it's a great movie. Like
Hmm.
this should be one of those movies that is up there with Barbie as a one or two movie, you know. But for me, like I had the only time I saw a trailer for it was uh, it was like 3 months ago. I saw one trailer for it, and that's I thought it was a video game up until I saw that trailer.
Wow. Okay.
Um, so I really think that Paramount missed the mark on marketing.
Hmm. Which is not
That's
the
Um,
first
because
time that
all the
Paramount's missed the
marketing
mark
was
with that.
Barbie.
yeah,
Barbie was everywhere.
But you would think that, and I don't want to make this a gender role thing, but you would think that as a brand, if nothing else, that they would have been like, the Turtles were as popular in especially in the early '90s, and we have a number of fans that we know are still out there who watch this, who grew up with it. You think they'd be like, okay, if Barbie can draw this kind of crowd, we should be able to draw a similar crowd with our product. And they just kind of slept on it, which is
yeah,
not the first time that Paramount's
Mhm.
done something like that. But it's sad to see they're just like wasting the opportunity, so to speak, and not capitalizing on the opportunity. Let me put it that way.
yeah, for sure. And like I said, for I think I saw like signage for it at Target once because they were putting up like their back or their little end cap displays for the movie toys coming out. And even then, I was like, "Oh yeah, cool! They're putting out toys for a video game." And it wasn't until I said that my kid was like, "That's a movie that's coming out," and I seriously like stopped and like grabbed his face. I was like, "What are you saying to me? There is a Turtles movie coming out," and he's like, "Yeah, it's like in a couple
And you're
months." And I
scaring
was
me now.
like,
Stop.
yeah, I was like, we are gonna go see this movie so many times. And
Well,
he's
and
like, remember, we're poor.
$5 Tuesdays. That's what we did. But no, like, okay, so speaking of Ninja Turtle movies, so obviously there have been several different movies over the years, and wasn't there like a newer iteration that came out in like 2014, somewhere
The
in there?
TMNT one?
Yeah, and like, tell me if I'm wrong, but they weren't really received well.
That one was not. That one. So you had two different versions of the movie coming out around the same time. You had the animated TMNT one, and you had then you had the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies come out.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
And
I'm talking more about the Michael Bay ones.
yeah, the Michael Bay ones were not well received, mostly because if you look back at the first, it kind of had the Sonic the Hedgehog thing going on, where you had like one version of Sonic for the trailers, and then everybody was like, "What the crap are you doing? Those do not look like turtles." And then like Michael Bay does this interview, was like, "Well, they're not really like turtles who are like mutated by ooze; they're aliens." And it's like, "What are you doing to my turtles?"
I think, I mean, yeah, so, I mean, I feel like you would have an opinion on this, James, but like, I mean, what I'm trying to say is like, I feel like because of like those movies, the Michael Bay ones and like other ones that they've done recently, because they didn't like do so well, that maybe some people, some fans were turned off by the idea of having another quote unquote Ninja Turtle movie to be disappointed at. You know what I mean?
Oh, you like
yeah.
DC in the Batman, Superman? Never mind.
Why did you say that name?
I was about to get into a
different topic for another day. But you know what I mean? Like, do you think people
Yeah,
were maybe
yeah,
not
for
as
sure.
excited about this one?
Well, yeah, especially because, like I said, like there was that animated one that I think it was 2008 that the animated one came out, the TMNT one. And like it's not a perfect movie. It has really good scenes in it.
7?
7?
I think it was 2007.
All I remember is I saw it at the Dollar Theater like 30 times in Provo.
Was Chris Evans a voice
I
on
think
that
so.
one? Okay, then that's the 2007 one.
Yeah.
'Cause all these other ones are in the 90s.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like before you had like that TMNT movie come out, I think the latest movie was Turtles 3, Turtles in Time, where they go back to
feudal
Japan.
Japan.
Like, yeah. But like the thing is, like you have in that TMNT when they changed so many things about like the villains and stuff like that that people were kind of frustrated at the movie. And they were like, "This isn't the Turtles I remember." But me, like, I'm always like, I just want content. I don't care what you change about it as long as you make it make sense for the story that you're telling. Which is like, I don't like the Michael Bay Turtle movies. They are
Tell
like,
us about them real quick.
they are like X-Men movies to me. They're not my favorite, but listen, I do not.
We're not talking.
They're
We're
not
talking
my.
different mutants. It's okay. It's okay.
They're not my favorite movies, but I own them and will watch them because, again, it's one of those things where as long as they're telling a story and it's a decent story that keeps me intrigued throughout the 2.5 hours, 3 hours of the movie, that's fine. They did their job. It doesn't have to be what I personally wanted it to be because I'm not the storyteller here. I'm just consuming the story.
I'm going to challenge that with 4 words.
Don't do it.
X3, the last.
Oh
my gosh.
Oh no. Again, that is a movie that I own. Okay, my I think we need to do another.
will
Yeah, we
keep it
need
with
to do another
turtles.
podcast where we talk about X-Men, and oh, you will have about 13 hours of content just to.
Oh my gosh.
I have a lot of opinions about the X-Men movies,
Apparently.
but um, like when they made those Michael Bay Turtle movies, like he had a beginning and end point that he wanted with those movies, and he really didn't stray far from that story throughout those three movies. Um, so I can ingest those movies and not have a problem with it. Do I have a problem with how the turtles look and like their manners and stuff like that? Yeah, because that's not what I remember from the turtles, but they make sense in that universe. Not a lot of fans think that. They want the 80s 90s style turtles in a movie. They want the uh they want a Michaelangelo that's a buffoon who eats pizza and that's all he does, and skateboards. Um, and you get to that 2008 movie, they start exploring more of a Raphael who gets lost in his emotions, who loses his battle to anger a lot, especially when it comes to Leonardo. And you see, like in that 2007 movie, they have a huge fight on a rooftop where Raphael breaks Leonardo's swords and then leaves him to get captured by the bad guy. And it's things like that. Like people are like, oh well, Raphael wouldn't do that, and it's like, no. If you look through the comic books and stuff, he always had a problem with Leonardo's leadership. They didn't explore that in those other movies because I think they did in the first Turtles movie because Leonardo gets captured in that one too. Or is it the second one? God, I need to watch Turtles again. Probably gonna do that after we get off this.
Who needs sleep?
Yeah, but yeah, no, like they started exploring more of the characters than they did in the past movies, and I think that a lot of people who just wanted the cartoon version or the fun version of the older movies, they just didn't like it, and that could be like. But I think like this movie, it gives you a mix of both. It gives you that they're teenagers who are going through some stuff. Like I said earlier, one of my favorite lines from this movie is when Leonardo takes his leadership role and like is telling people what they're good at, and he tells Raphael's like, "Get loud, use that rage," and then Raphael flips the van, and what does Michelangelo say? He's like, "We need to get you in therapy." Like I loved that.
They just had like the best like quips. Like they were just so
Yeah.
like all four of them
So
just
one of the
like
things
flowed really
about
well.
that, this is the first time they've actually had teenagers voicing the characters.
Yeah.
And one of the things they did was a lot of here's a framework of what we want to do with the scene, and let the actors just kind of riff. So
Yeah.
that was something that was entirely new for this because as opposed to
I
having
love that.
a completely scripted dialogue, it's like here's what we're going for, and here's whatever setup they gave them, and just kind of let them be teenagers. So you got
Right.
something that was a lot more resonant
Genuine.
and genuine from a teenager's perspective than somebody who's like, this is what a teenager should sound like, and if you say this and then this, yeah. So you get actual teenagers being teenagers, and that was kind of fun and refreshing. So, like I said, when I came into this, finding out that Seth Rogen was involved, I was like, oh boy. This could go one of two ways, and I'm glad that it went the way that it did, and that he brought his admiration for the characters and the franchise into this, and you could feel that this movie was made from a very loving perspective, and I wish that more directors and producers of superhero fare were allowed to express that passion in their project without having to worry about somebody going, well, no, you need to rein this back in or bring this back in. And I don't know if it was a case of Paramount going, it's an animated movie, so we're not as concerned. But the fact
Right.
that you could see that, I mean, you can honestly tell how much Rogan loves this franchise with the care that he took in cultivating this and the relationships within and changing changing some of the origin. I like the fact that he kept little known fact for many people. In the original comics, they were black and white, so all of the turtles were just it was a black and white render, so you couldn't tell who was who by their bandanas, but you had to do it definitely by the weapons. But April O'Neil and Baxter Stockman in the original comics were black. When Eastman and Laird sold the property or licensed the property off to, I think Image got it first to do larger runs, and they were colorized. They had no color key to go by because they didn't have one for a black and white comic. So the colorist just made Baxter and April white. So the fact that this movie goes back to the fact that they were black, and I was kind of like, oh, well, that's cool. It's good to see that they're having this kind of reverence for the source material to go back to that detail, and make it so that and April's not the hot young newscaster. She's a high school kid. Baxter Stockman is not. Well, he was never really great looking scientist in the cartoons or the book, but he was kind of like underground scientist in this, and they kind of just gave him that I'm working on a shoestring budget and I'm doing the best I can making all these creatures over here, but just let's not talk about that, and doing his own thing. And that was just one of the things that I appreciated for one of the lesser known details of the um, mythos of the turtles.
Yeah, well, and the one thing I will say though, is, like, that kind of bummed me out, is I wanted more, uh, because you grow up seeing Bebop and Rocksteady as like the villains.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see more of that, but they're also tied to Shredder as villains. They're like his henchmen. So like,
Well, in cutting off, and let's look at that for a second. They kind of removed. I'm going to get his name wrong. Hiroku Sato. No, I cannot remember what Shredder's name is or Splinter's human name was, because they eliminated that completely from this
yeah,
origin and their relationship prior to the turtles becoming, coming out of the sewers and becoming heroes in the public eye. So they
Heroes in the
removed
Half Shell.
turtle power. um, so they removed that, but I like the way that they built up everything else in the family dynamic with Splinter
Yeah,
and the turtles, and Splinter being fearful to hateful towards humans because of how they treated him and the boys, and how the boys are like, we don't get what's wrong with Dad. People seem to be cool. Look, Ferris Bueller gets to sing and everything. You go to high school, you get to do all these fun things, and they just want to be average kids who just happen to be ninjas because he saw black belt theater umpteen times and decided to teach them how to fight,
I love
which I
that.
thought was a fantastic take on that, because as somebody who grew up watching black belt theater in the redacted age, and grew up with that on Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons after the cartoons went off, the fact that he taught the turtles how to fight from black belt theater, I'm just like, check, I'm in. I'm all in on this.
I loved that. Well, and like kind of back to like what the turtles looked like as well. I just have to say, like, I just have to be, I just have to be the person to say it. But like when they showed the turtles as babies, oh my freaking cute, right? I was like dying over those scenes when they were going through that, especially when they like find them and they're just like playing in the ooze, and there's like the one that needs glasses and there's like the one little chunky one, and like, oh my gosh, I
You want to
was
build a bear,
dying.
don't you? You want build a bears of them, don't you?
Oh my gosh. If they're the baby versions, then yes. But yeah, no, I just loved seeing and yeah, just like kind of talking about the animation style again. Like I just thought it was so fun and fresh to see that, and just to kind of see like their interactions with each other and as they're growing up, and they're like the whole montage that they're doing with like learning
Mhm,
how they became ninjas, and like Splinter, or not Splinter. Yeah, Splinter,
mhm.
like raising them, and freaking Jackie Chan. Oh my gosh. That was even better that it was Jackie Chan voicing Splinter, but Yeah, no, I thought the cast for the all the voices was like
They
perfect.
did a great job. I
Yeah.
mean, casting everyone in this movie in their respective roles. It was fun to hear just people you might not expect to do an animated movie with the Ninja
Mhm.
Turtles to be in this movie and just
Mhm.
living it, like Ice Cube as Superfly.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Superfly.
And that's, now I will have to defer to James on this. Was Superfly ever a character in the comics or any of the versions of the movies? Because I know that in
Not in the
the
movies.
mythology that I'm aware of, it was Baxter Stockman who basically became Jeff Goldblum and the
Yeah.
Fly, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. So I don't remember a Superfly in the comic books.
Okay.
I know they never brought him in any of the movies
Okay.
because they've done the Baxter Stockman fly thing. Well, even in the older movies, they didn't even. I think they had Baxter Stockman, but he never transformed
Sure.
because he created, I forget their names, but the werewolf and the snapping turtle in Turtles 2.
Okay.
Um, and then in the Michael Bay ones, Baxter was Tyler Perry. Uh, and I don't.
Give me just a minute there. I just need to. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
but they, but they didn't. I don't remember if they have him transform in that. I think that they like tease it, but then they're
Mm,
like, haha, just kidding. Um, but speaking of the movies, there was a very meta moment for the older movies when Vanilla Ice's Ninja
Ninja
Rap
Rap.
came on. I was in there and I heard that happen. I was like, they just created a time paradox and continuity because now the Ninja Turtles 2 movie exists in this
Oh my
universe.
gosh. Oh my
So
gosh.
they could go watch a movie about themselves.
Oh my gosh.
But
Mm.
well, and then like one other thing I wanted to mention though with the soundtrack is the orchestral score and stuff is all done by Trent Reznor.
And Atticus Ross, which is their
Yes,
second big one that I know that they've done. And I mean, they're just knocked it out of the park.
loved everything about it. I saw somebody post Nine Inch Nails and TMNT. My life is complete, and I was like, that was me. Like I remember going to the roller rink when I was in like seventh grade. My child reminded me of this. Going to the roller rink and when I was in seventh grade, having like my Discman with my brother's Nine Inch Nails CD and playing the Ninja Turtles arcade game. So it's like, for me, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like that was my life growing up.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was awesome.
I was trying to remember what it was that struck me that Ross and Reznor did, and it was Watchmen, the miniseries for
Yeah.
Watchmen that they did the score for. But the other one that was for the Pixar movie Soul. That was what I was trying to remember.
Yes.
So they did the score
Oh.
for that,
Hmm.
and worked with piano work was done by John Batiste, formerly of the Late Show band.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean they did a great job with this, and I mean all the way around, this was a fun, entertaining, um, and honestly surprising movie in a couple of ways. Just how much nostalgia they evoked, how much they were like, we're not beholden to the everything that came before with the franchise. We're kind of taking a little bit of our own direction and our own spin on it, and being not doing a disservice to the franchise in doing so. And like I said, hearing Rogan was attached, I had some
Yeah.
concern, but kudos to him for the piece of cinema that he put forth.
Well, and like I think one of the big things too, and I think a lot of parents uh, of teenagers or preteens will appreciate is you see like when they're training with their weapons and stuff like that, how awful they are at it. When you have kids around that age, like so my kid was in fencing for 2 years,
Wow.
not the best at it. But just watching him, like he would in our kitchen, he would like bring out like lightsabers, like let me show you what I learned, and then he would like try to like show me some of his moves, and he would just end up like opening himself up for me to like slap him on the head with a lightsaber. And but like it reminded me, like, you know, kids these age are clunky. Like they're clunky with their movements and everything like that. You see this when it's in a sai that gets thrown into
A throwing,
uh is it
was
a
a sigh
throwing
or throwing
star, or
star? No, it
and
was a
then
sigh. It was a sigh. Yeah.
and then Leonardo's off to the side like, oh, I'm gonna be sick.
Oh yeah.
It was Donatello's leg because he's screaming.
Yes.
But like it's things like that, because like there's times where like my kid has a play knife and he'll go to throw it and he hits the dog, but he's trying to hit something that's like right in front of him. I'm like, oh my god, you are awful at that. I hope nobody ever breaks into our house because I'm gonna get something thrown right in my face
Oh my
and I'm
gosh.
gonna be behind you.
Oh
But
my
like
god.
it's those kind of things, like those small things that parents can take, like, and even non-parents, like you think of yourself at that age and how awful it was for us to do anything because our bodies are growing and we're like we don't know our own capabilities. And so just watching that and just thinking like, I have 7 more years of this, of my child growing up and breaking stuff in the apartment because he's awful at it. But yeah, no, that was just one of my favorite takeaways from the movie.
You know, the turtles were, to be blunt, for being mutant turtles, they were very human, and Splinter was very human. And watching his interaction with them as a parent, it's just like, oh no, yeah, no, okay, let's not talk about this. Don't do that, because the girls are going to see that, they're going to be like, oh, that makes sense now, or what have you. So I really did appreciate the way that despite being anthropomorphic mutant animals, they were all very human, and I love the fact that they were not, no one in this movie was cookie cutter. Everybody had
Right.
their own motivation. Now, granted, most of the mutants just kind of followed Superfly, but you can see that they're just kind of like, oh, maybe we don't want to be the bad guy here, which for Bebop and Rocksteady was a definite turn.
Right.
And just watching how each of them interacted and just took things at their own on their own level, and not just just like, yep, it's just animal, four turtles, rhino, warthog. And the fact that everybody had something to contribute also in their own way, I thought was also something that was well well portrayed. And they didn't play up everyone as having a huge role in certain things, but everybody had something to do. Every character they introduced had every character that had more than like half a line, had something to do in this movie.
Yeah.
And for an ensemble piece, that is not always easy to bring to the screen.
Right.
And they did it well.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that I appreciated too is when Superfly is like crushing the turtles, like
Hmm.
when he's telling him, like when he's trying to kill him. Um, did you read the Last Ronin stuff for
I
the
did not.
turtles? Um, so
No, I haven't.
in that series, that's essentially how. Well, not that exactly, but that's essentially how they die. Is they get their shells cracked, because that's the easiest way to kill a turtle besides cutting off its head. Is you smash the shell, because
Oh.
all of its bits are under the shell.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, like when because like, growing up turtle, like loving the turtles and stuff, when I read that comic, I cried like a baby. Um, and like just when Superfly starts squeezing them and their shells start cracking, I had to turn away from the screen. It's like, nope,
Oh
you're
no.
you're
Oh,
you're an adult in a cartoon movie. You're not doing this in this movie. You cried 4 times at Barbie. You're not
Mm.
crying at Turtles.
Oh my gosh. Did you hear that
But
they're doing a video game, that they announced a video game for the based on the last Ronin?
Oh yeah, yeah.
comic.
No, I thought you were talking about Barbie. I was like, what?
No, sorry, I'm
I
back
will
on
buy a Barbie
Ronin.
video game.
And
Yeah, I
actually,
did hear that.
my husband just bought that comic too. Like he got the big book of it.
Trade.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he
but like
hasn't
that's the
started
thing.
it
It's
yet though.
like because like I remember like people speculating. Oh well, who is it? Who's the one to survive?
Don't ruin it for those who
I'm not
haven't
gonna
read
ruin
it.
it. I'm not gonna ruin it. But like what I'll say though is that it was hard to tell because he's carrying everybody's masks. Like he's wearing them all at the same time.
Hmm.
So, and that's his way of keeping his brothers with him. But like, what in the movie? Once I started seeing those shells crack, I was like, they can't. This has to be a franchise. This is a children's movie. You can't kill them in this movie.
Well, and I
But I got
think yeah, well, and I think like they're setting up this movie like easily so that there could be a sequel.
right.
Especially with
Um.
Shredder showing up at the end, but like
Yeah.
Yes.
also like where it was just like a nice beginner like origin movie, like they're getting into it, feel getting a better feel for things and how they work as a team and how they fight. I mean, because we see in the movie like their first actual real time that they're fighting against enemies and how that played out. And it was a little like as we were kind of saying, it was a little clunky, but I mean, they managed, but it took them a minute. But anyways, no, just besides all that, like there's definitely room for more.
Yeah.
Right.
There's room for growth. And so I could totally see them making a sequel. And who knows, Rocksteady and Bebop, they could change sides again and go with Shredder.
Sure.
They
Well, I'm
changed
like,
sides so easily before.
yeah. Well, and when you have John Cena playing one of them, like,
Yeah.
definitely. And that's the funny thing too, because in the Michael Bay ones, let's see, John Cena was he Bebop? Was he which one was he? I couldn't
I
tell by
think
the voices.
I
He
know,
was
it was hard to
in
tell. I think he was Bebop though.
filmography. Hey, look. That's a lot of wrestling in that filmography. Holy crap.
Yeah, because they put out all their wrestling tapes on Blu-ray, so they count them as
Oh.
IMDbable.
Wow.
But anyway, what I was gonna say though is the funny thing is in the Michael Bay movies, Sheamus, another WWE wrestler, plays Bebop. No, he plays Rocksteady. Sheamus plays Rocksteady, and I think John Cena played him in this one. So it's just funny to me that they had two WWE wrestlers
And I
playing
cannot
the
find a
same
listing
character.
for Turtles
He
for
was
Cena.
Rocksteady. Yeah, he was John Cena was Rocksteady in this one.
Yeah.
No, not in this one. In previous. Did you say he voiced another one?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sheamus,
That's why.
another WWE wrestler,
I am
it
there now.
was
Thank you.
Rocksteady in the Michael Bay ones.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
apparently, if you're a WWE wrestler, you can play Rocksteady in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
There you go.
So,
Well, cool. Well, I think that we've taken a good look at the Turtles across a couple of different franchises in this movie. What would your final takeaway or offering be on this movie? Recommendation, if you wanted to give it a grade, however you care to go out. Marlee, we'll start with you.
Yeah, again, like kind of like what I said at the top of the episode, I feel like this is a movie that can be enjoyed by anyone, really. I feel like especially if you go into it with an open mind and just know that it's going to be a fun movie and just like don't and I'm not trying to say like, oh, don't have high expectations, but like just like go into it knowing that it's just going to be a fun movie. That kind of comes from I know there's a colleague of mine who went to go see it with his 16-year-old daughter, and he's like, well, my daughter loves it, but I was kind of like bored or whatever. And I'm like, dude, come on, like just go and enjoy it. Like you don't need to be a butt about it. He'll never listen to this podcast, so I don't care. But anyway, so like I feel like it's a really fun movie, and just go and enjoy it. And I definitely think it's rewatchable. Like I'd watch it again. And plus it was just really fun to watch it with my husband, who is such a big Ninja Turtles fan. So it was fun. It was definitely a fun thing to do together. And I'm excited to see, if they do some more with it. But yeah, no, I give it a solid, I give it like a solid like A minus. It's not like I didn't love it as much as like Across the Spider-Verse, which is, which one, it's a little bit easy for me to compare since that's another really good animated film that came out this summer. Because I give Across the Spider-Verse an A plus plus plus. So this one I give a solid like A minus. I feel like it was really fun.
James?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Like, it's definitely something that is fun to, like, as a Turtles fan, it was fun for me just to get a new, fresh look on the Turtles. It is a great movie to watch with family and friends. You don't have to know anything about the Turtles before watching this one. Um, I would say, and I kind of agree with what you're saying, like the whole, like, we're going to, a lot of people are going to be comparing this to Spider-Verse just because not only is it like top animation right now, but it's the last big animated film that came out. And so like there's going to be a lot of those comparisons. And I don't think that where Across the Spider-Verse is something that I think is going to be like, that had potential to be like picture of the year. This isn't going to be up there with that, but it's definitely a really good movie that I think a lot of people should go see. And I would be about that A minus grade as well for it.
Well, I guess we're going to be kind of unanimous there. It was a fun movie for fans, non-fans, and fans to be, so to speak, to go and enjoy and share good family quality time together, watching a fun movie that has a fantastic soundtrack, great voice casting, um,
Mm-hmm.
great. I guess we'll call it cinematography, even though it was you know, uh, since it was animated, not photograph shot. But all around a great experience that everybody can enjoy, all ages. I believe the rating is PG-13,
Is it?
or is it PG? Um, so be aware that it's Ninja Turtles who are fighting, and there is a fair bit of violence in this movie. So that's why I'm thinking it may be a 13, but it is something that pretty much all ages
I
can
think it's
go enjoy.
PG.
It is PG.
I think, yeah.
Um,
Well, I think so. Is the internet lying to me?
dun dun dun.
Yeah, it's PG.
PG. So please be warned. There are some scenes that might be a little questionable for younger children, but I think that generally speaking, you can find something to enjoy all the way around in this movie. I also am going to give it an A minus, and I'd love to hear what other people think. What's your take on this movie? If you've seen it, if you plan to see it, feel free to join us on our discord.ageofgeek.com, and let's have a dialogue and join the fun in the conversation.
And
I
I
would
feel
also
like if Colin had been here, I think he would have not given it such a high score as the rest of us. He'd made a comment in our Discord, again plugging our Discord, about how he didn't really like. It seemed like he didn't really find it as fun as we did. So
well,
it would have been
that's just
interesting
Colin. It's just Colin.
yeah, it would have been interesting to hear his take on the podcast, but I feel like we had a much better. I'm just kidding, Colin. We missed you, but yeah, I'd definitely be curious to hear what people think, even further in our Discord channel. Let's keep the conversation going.
Definitely. And once again, we also want to thank James Estrada for joining us. James, let people know where they can find you in the medias.
Oh no, this happened last time. I forget where you find me. I think my Twitter is nerdy at home dad still. Everything else I think is just my name backwards. I don't even know how to pronounce it right now. I'm going on like 4 hours of sleep, so
And you're doing fine.
and I gotta watch Turtles again tonight. So, but yeah, it's just I think it's Samaj _ Adartse everywhere else. But yeah,
Definitely check James out, and feel free to join us again on our Discord or any of the other outlets where you can find Age of Geek. And with that, we're going to say thank you, good evening, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Oh. Did you?
This has been an Age of Geek media production.
Yeah, at some point, I'll learn how to do all these buttons in the right order.
Did you press end recording yet?